Welcome back, everyone. It is week 1, day 4 of Python. We've come back from Algos, and now we're going to do our Flask lecture. Okay, so now the recording's actually officially started. Let's get started. Okay, so not much of a slide presentation for you guys today. I'm going to be going mostly over the content that we're able to see here on the platform that you guys have. And I wanted to go through it thoroughly because I noticed some of us weren't using the platform to the most optimal way, which is going step by step and following each module until you get to the specific assignment there that all those modules would have led you up to building it. So building the actual assignment shouldn't be as hard as what you guys are sometimes making it out to be, because what we're doing is skipping modules. We're skipping lessons, trying to get to the point. And I do see that there's a good there's good use in seeing, okay, what's my next destination? What's my next checkpoint? Where am I trying to get to? But if you go straight there, I like to do that as well. I say, what's the next assignment? What do they want me to do? And I look into what it is. But if you see the big picture and then don't go detail by detail, you'll miss how to get there. Okay, so let's go step by step and let's look at the big picture. Okay, today this is going to be our goal. This is one of our, let's look at our calendar. Okay, this is the end of the day goal, HTML table. Let's see where that is in the platform. It is at the it's below playground, as you can see. The link took me here. So let's take a look at the assignment before HTML table and HTML table, so we get the big picture of what we're doing today. What's the steps that we're going to take to get to this here, so we know where we're going, and then we'll take the steps together. Okay, so look at this GIF here, or GIF, however you pronounce it. I don't care. All right, 5,000, and then they type in /play, and then they type in /5. Whatever number that they render on this GIF is the number of squares that appears, and by the color as well. So this is pretty cool, right? Because now you can do this only through your route. It's changing the amount of divs in the CSS styling properties by changing that route information. Okay, so that's where our input is. Okay, so that input there is able to change our HTML view. And at this point, we haven't seen or done anything like this yet. Okay, so this is the first assignment. So this is our first goal. And then the end of the day goal is to get to this step. So let's look here. This person goes to localhost, and we see a list of names. Okay, doesn't seem too difficult. But to get to this step, well, what do we see here that we already are familiar with? I mean, this is the front end, right? So you guys are familiar with HTML, CSS, Bootstrap. That's not the problem. The problem is, how do we make it load from the search bar here, right? How do we get localhost in our browser to pull up that HTML file? So that's what we're going to be learning today, how to get our Python files connected to our front-end HTML, CSS, JavaScript files so that they can interact with each other. And in order for them to be interacting with each other, they need to have the same environment. They need to have the same space. So that is the concept we're going to be covering today, which is Flask. Flask is the space that the server and the front end share. That's how we can think of it right now. Okay, and what does the word Flask actually mean? We talked about this before. Someone give me a hint. Come on, we know what this is, right? It's a container. A flask is a container. Thank you, Brooks. It's a container that holds stuff. So then how can we think of this feature here, Flask, as our help. Well, Flask is going to contain our server file, our Python file, and our templates and statics. What are templates and statics? It's this stuff. This is here. So Flask is a service that helps us just contain everything in one area so that we can work with our server connecting to those files and making them interact with each other. All right. So we know then what Flask is. It's an environment, that it's a space. It contains something, and it contains the Python file, the server file, which we said it was the backend, right? Because we have this analogy, restaurant, front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, kitchen, backend, Python, our Python server file, and then database, we're saving that for next week. But right now we're working on the kitchen, and this server.py file, in order to put it in the same environment as the front end, we're going to put it in a Flask environment. So now we can imagine this is like coming along here. Imagine this is our restaurant, right? This is our coding restaurant. This is the front end. This is where guests walk and see. They see the front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And the server.py, this is where the kitchen is. This is where the customers don't see. But they still need to be in the same space. They still need to be in the same environment. So we're going to use Flask to put us in the same environment. Okay. Let's use another analogy with us for a second. Another analogy. Has anyone ever been to a sports complex? Anyone ever been to a sports complex where you go and you want to play a sport? Sometimes there's like soccer fields, indoor soccer fields, or basketball courts, or handball courts, any kind of complex, maybe basketball, all these different types of sports in one space, right? Different sports, there's different rules, there's different equipment for all these different sports. And each sport has its own environment, right? Think of a sports complex like a company. When you are in a company and you're working on a project, you'll be working in your own environment with your own team, because you're going to need equipment specific to what you're building and the project that you're working on, right? So if you're needing a specific package that maybe another team doesn't need, right? In the sports complex analogy, maybe you need a basketball hoop in your basketball court, but you don't need a basketball hoop in the hockey ring or the soccer ring, right? That's going to get in the way. So we want to keep specific tools to specific environments. And a company may have many environments that they have many projects working on. All right. And this is why we use environments to begin with, because there are sections in our company or our sports complex where there's different equipment, there's different software being used, there's different packages. You don't need a sports complex wouldn't be a complex if it had basketball courts, soccer goalie, football, field goal. So all those things wouldn't need to be in the same place at the same time, or they get in the way of each other. So we need to section off our separate environments and download specific tools to those environments. In this case, we're just working with one environment for our project, one at a time, one environment, one place at a time in our own computer that holds our server and our templates and static files, which is our front end. Okay. So let's let me pause here and ask if you guys are following along. Do you guys see where I'm going with this explanation for an environment? How it contains the server, how it contains the front end, and how we want them to be separate from other environments that might need other tools specific to them. So I'll explain this as many different ways as I need to, but when I first started this wasn't explained to me, or I just didn't understand it. What's the point of having an environment? What is an environment? What is the purpose of it? Why can't we just code and build folders and files just like we did before when we were working in front end? Well, that's because now we're involving a server, and a server needs to interact with our front end through this environment so it's sectioned off from other environments. Okay, we need to have compartments. Now, a couple things about environments that I want to warn us before we start to install them and implement them. First thing is that we can't have an environment within an environment. That's going to be a pitfall. And we're probably going to run into that and realize what we did and then have to back up and then remember this, that we can't have an environment within an environment. And the way that's often done is that mistake is avoided by not creating an environment in either one, your desktop, or two, a level in your computer, a high level in your computer, like your C drive, the place where all your files and places are stored. If you put your environment in those areas, you're bound to trip and accidentally make an environment within an environment, right? Because that's at the highest level. So when you create these environments, you're going to create your own folder location to put them in. And we're going to have a checklist that we go step by step. And I'll share this checklist with you guys. So anytime you want to do this, you just create it and just follow the list. All right. The list is in the platform. We're going to follow the platform right now. But I also have a checklist that I have here with us. So let me pull that up and we're going to go step by step and follow along with what we're doing here today. Okay. So here's what we have as far as virtual environments to do. We're going to create a virtual environment with pip env and install Flask. Okay. Flask is the tool, again, where'd I go? That holds everything together. Okay. Oh, where did I go? Oh, I was in sorry, lost my train of thought. So here we are with pip env, and we're going to explain what this is, but it's necessary to use to install Flask. And then we're going to activate the virtual environment, and then we're going to run the server file. Okay. So this 3 steps. We're going to create a virtual environment. We're going to activate it. And once the virtual environment is activated, we can go into it and start the server file. So it's a bit of a step process, right? It's a little bit like when we created a folder and then, start the folder, but this is a little bit more steps to get to where we are. And in order to do these steps, I want us to get used to the terminal, okay? I know some really savvy coders that have no knowledge of the terminal, which is sad because this is an old school tool, but it's still really helpful today. And if you're not familiar with it, you may be hired to work at a company that would expect you to know how to use an older tool, and you'll be, without it. So what I want us to be now is comfortable running files, running servers on our terminal. I'm using the terminal that's just inbuilt on my Mac here. You can use your own command prompt. You can use the, the other one that we offer to download. I think it's called...
I use Commander.
Commander, yeah. You can use Commander, which is pretty good as well. I'm just using this one because I like the way I can customize those colors and the layout. So anyways, here we are. And so I need to follow these steps. I'm gonna follow it with the terminal. And so in order to follow these steps, I'm going to go through the platform step by step. Okay, so let's read through this and follow the platform's instructions. Okay, I'm going to skip the video here. We've seen this image. We know what this is for. Okay, let's move along to the next module. Okay, so here we are. And as you can see, there's separate instructions here for 2 different types of users, the Mac users and the Windows users. Are there any Linux users here? Is Johnny? Oh, I knew it, Johnny.
That's why I use Commander.
Okay, well, you're good then. If you're a Linux user, you probably know how to figure it out. So don't worry. I'm not going to worry about you guys. But for the rest of us, um, plebeians, here we are going to use the Windows and Mac. All right. So we are simpletons. So let's go into our let's go ahead and look into what pip env is. Okay. So pip env is a tool to help us get virtual environments. And pip is a Python, I think it's a recursive name. It's to install Python packages. Pip install packages. And we're going to use it to install this virtual environment. So we're going to take this step and go ahead and get started. So in order to do this, I don't think we have to be at a specific folder file level to begin with. When we're working as a developer, we might find ourselves working in different projects. Let me just ask Vincent here. We can do this at the global level on the terminal, right? Does it matter? Vincent or Flavian?
Let's see.
You want to do that one time
Yeah.
at the global level. So
Global
pipenv
level.
is the package we're going to use to
Okay.
install.
I thought so. I just didn't want to trip up on myself there. Okay, so let's do that at the global level. And what we mean by the global level, try saying that fast. Global level. What we mean by that is the place where your terminal first opens. That means anywhere. And global means the whole entire thing, the whole world, the whole thing. So this will be installed and be available everywhere. So you only need to do it once. I'm going to do the Mac version since I'm on a Mac, and you can see mine is slightly different. It says pip3 install pip env. So let's go ahead and do that. Pip3 install pip env. Oops. Make sure you don't have a typo there. Once it looks clean, enter. I have mine already installed, so mine's already satisfied. Yours is going to look slightly different. Okay, I'm going to run a poll. Give me a high number on the poll if you're caught up. Give me a low number if you're falling way behind. And go step by step. This is going to be super easy. Okay. This is Python package installer. You just Johnny just accidentally installed Flask on his C drive. What does he do? I think you can, let's see, I think this is also at the, see, navigate to the Hello Flask folder. So you don't want to have that installed at the C drive level. You see if you can uninstall it. Just type in the same command, but uninstall. Okay, Johnny, keep us updated on what it looks like for you there, if you're all right. So now that we've done that, I see that we're mostly following along. If anyone's behind, please speak up and say, I need some help. This is pretty simple enough to follow with. You use pip3 install once and install Flask on the project we work on. Yes, so let me get to that. Yes, good questions. And glad it worked, Johnny. Okay, so uninstalls. It's like the Wumbo, right? And SpongeBob, you just turn it upside down. So let's continue. I'm not sure what your question is, Oriole, but let's continue.
Testing.
Austin?
Hello? Oh, there
Yes.
it goes. I'm getting an error. It says cannot find version that satisfies the requirement.
Okay. Let's see. Can you take a screenshot and post it in Discord?
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue, and then I'll keep an eye on that as well.
I'm also getting a error.
Maybe we didn't install pip. Is that something we maybe would have skipped? Instructor Tyler, is that probably a necessary step that we need to ensure that they have pip?
Yeah, I can work with people if it's not working. There may be a step we need to install pip. We can do that after lecture.
I think I know where that is in the platform where I can quickly pull that up. So let's take a quick detour for those falling behind, because if we have too many falling behind, I'm gonna feel like I'm making us miserable here. So let me see if I can find, I think it's on the web fund stack. So give me just 30 seconds here. Bear with us, class. This is more like a lesson tutorial today, so it's not like a full out lecture conceptually. Courses. It's a very last tab on the extras of web fund. Try to see if I can pull that up. Web fundamentals. Here we are. Okay, almost there. Intro to Python. Language fundamentals. It's right around the corner here. Give me a second. Okay. Oh, that's terminal. I thought it was handy. Never mind. Week 2, day 4. Maybe they moved it.
I just put a link in chat. It should just be a command they need to run. If you
Okay.
go to that link,
Yeah.
go to that link. There's a Linux, Mac, and Windows. Just a script that needs to be ran.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one here is for Linux users, Mac users, and Windows. So there's a slight difference there. And it's this first one here, not the second one, get pip.py. Oh, there's both ways.
So I restarted my terminal and I got it to work. It gave me the same error, but it gave me a different output. So I fixed it.
Same error, different output?
I just have to see the chat.
Okay.
It didn't give me the second part before. It didn't give me the 2 notices before.
Okay. So if you don't have pip installed, here's the link that Tyler provided. You get this pip installed before we continue. Okay. I believe we should have had that already working up before we got to this lesson, but let me just see here why the I think it's just not on the platform. I'm remembering it is there for some reason. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little distracted there. Let's continue. So we installed pip. All right. If we're so far here, we're good. If you don't have pip, then please get it installed. If you're falling behind, then Tyler and I will work with you after this lecture. Okay. I'm gonna just give polls out here in a second to see where we're at. All right. So now that we have successfully installed pip env on either our Windows or Mac, we want to be able to install Flask. Now, here's where we want to be careful. So it says here in the instructions, navigate to the Hello Flask folder using your terminal or command prompt. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to a folder that we would need to create. I'm going to clear everything so I can see a little bit clearer. LS to see where I am. And I see my desktop is available. I want to go there because I want to just keep my files available to me to see, and I'll move it later. CD, so that means change directory to the desktop. And if I tab after I type into capital D and E, there's no other file that starts with capital D and E, so it's going to know what this is automatically. I press tab and it autofills it for me. That's a little bit better than typing it manually so you don't make a typo. Okay. All right. And so now enter. And here's where you want to have a folder that holds all your Python assignments. I already have one called Python here, so I'm going to make this one called mkdir. So make a directory or folder and call it Python 2. Okay, this is my second Python file for oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, mkdir Python 2. Yeah, why not? Okay,
So,
yes.
do we put it into our Python folder if we have one for the class already?
Go into your Python folder and create it in there. Yeah. What we're
Okay.
doing now. So I'm gonna go into this just as you said, Python 2. I'm gonna go into it and I'm gonna make another folder. There, I'm gonna make the one called Hello Flask. Okay. And I'm gonna say mkdir, make a directory called Hello Flask. ls, just to see it's there. There it is. That's the one folder in my Python 2 folder. So I'm going to cd into it. Hello, he tab, or just h tab, because it knows that there's only one folder in here with the beginning with h. Enter, and now I'm here. So if I ls, I shouldn't see anything because I should be in an empty folder here. So now I'm where I want to be. And it tells me where my current file path location is. If you can see here the name Hello Flask. It's here after I said cd Hello Flask. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're all at this point before we continue. All right, so where's the poll here? Polls and quizzes. Doesn't let me find the poll. Okay. Either like the window's broken or it's just hiding. I can't see the poll anyway, so never mind. Just let me know in the chat if you're falling way far behind. That's what we'll do. Zoom's like UI here is throwing me off. Let's continue. All right, so we're in our folder. This is where we want to be, into the Hello Flask folder. And here's where we want to do our first step. Pip install Flask. So this is our very first place where we're installing Flask. Let's do that. Pip install Flask. Or pip env. Pip env. Okay. Now that I enter, it's going to go ahead and install Flask at the current directory location. So it's taking its time. Just let it run. And there we go. We see it. We see it working. Successfully created virtual environment. And now I've successfully created a virtual environment inside my folder. This is what my terminal should look like once that is completed. And yours should look like this too. Successfully created virtual environment, installation succeeded, success. So this is good. We've created our virtual environment. Okay, so let's take a look at where we're going. We created a virtual environment with pip env and installed Flask. Now it's time to activate the virtual environment. Okay, and I have another checklist here. So step 1, as we said here, create a new folder. I'm going to share this with you guys as well. And then we're going to go into the folder, right? These are 2 important steps. Create your folder, go into the folder, and then open up a terminal in that location. You should be going there through your terminal anyway. But in case you haven't, go there in your terminal location. Once you are there, ignore this. Okay? But what we want to do for now, there's other things we're going to install later. What we want to do is pip env install Flask once you're in that folder location. And that's where we should be now. That's what we just accomplished. And so we've just completed step 3 of this checklist. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's take a look at our let's take a look at what we created. Now that we did this here, if I type in ls, there's something in here now. Pip file and pip file.lock. All right, so if I open this up in Visual Studio Code, what do we have here? We have a pip file and a pip file.lock. What you need to know about this pip file.lock is that you don't need to touch it. Okay, it has these specific rules and code that it's not needed for us to really touch at all. It's already pre-done for us. Now this pip file here has some interesting information as well. It tells us the version of Python that we're using at the very bottom. This Flask here is saying that get the most updated version of Flask. And this URL, don't go here. Okay, just leave it there and don't go there because it'll open up too many files at once when you try to open it on your computer. So just leave it. And it should look like this. Once you have completed the installing the virtual environment, you should have these 2 files in your folder space. Mine's called Hello Flask. Yours should be 2 right now. Okay, so now we have a environment, right? So now there's a space that we can work within. We can start putting this stuff in this space now that we see that we've created it. Okay, so let's continue. I do want to take a poll. So let me try to find where this poll is. I know it's disappeared on my screen somewhere, but I hate to not know where you guys are at. Come on, Zoom. Vincent, are you able to use the role, able to launch a poll?
I see the poll quiz option.
Could you launch it for me? Because I'm not seeing it on my. There we are. Perfect. Now I see it. All right, I've relaunched a poll. How well are we following along at this point? All we've done is create a folder and install Flask inside of it. 2 things, really simple. I just want to explain what it is we're doing before I just tell you, do this, do that. You know, type this, type that. What we're doing is we're creating a space that's sectioned off for our project, and we're going to use specific software dependencies only here and not everywhere else. We don't need these software dependencies on your whole computer, on another program. We just need them for this project, this program. So we're going to keep it to its own environment. Okay, so now that we finished this step, we've seen some success. We've seen this. And let's take a look at this note here. You can also do this in 2 steps by installing and activating with the command pip env shell. So this installs and activates the environment. And then installing a separate step using the same install command from the above, pip env install Flask. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this here in just a minute, pip env shell. And let's look here to our terminal and type that in. Pip env shell. And what did this just now do? This completed step 2 in our process here. Not this one. We have gone through this now step, activating the virtual environment. It's a difference, and I think we should know it, okay? There's creating a virtual environment, and then there's activating a virtual environment. At this point now, we are activated, and we can see that we're activated in our virtual environment because we can see here the name of our folder in parentheses. Do you see this here? This lets us know we are currently in our virtual environment of this folder that I had started by typing this command, pip env shell. So now that I've started my virtual environment, step two, whoa, where are we? This part, step 2, is now done. Now we need to run the server file, right? Everything is activated, created, now it's activated. And the difference is just in the description there. One is creating, one is getting it started, okay? Now we need to run the server file. When our virtual environment is running like this, at this point, we can start our server file. Now we don't have a server file in our project yet, but it's going to tell us to make one like right now. Okay, so after this, we're going to be making a virtual environment. Sorry, we're going to make a server. Let's see here if we can go to the next module. And here, yes, we're building the server. So this command where we start the server, all right, and the server is a Python file, as you can see here, .py. Our server, or we call it our back end, our kitchen right now, it's in charge of everything in the back that people don't see. It needs to be started when our virtual environment is up and running. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay? Here, I'm in this virtual environment. So if I had a server file, I could make it run. Okay? I'm not going to do that yet until I have a server file. So what I'm going to do is exit my virtual environment right now in order to go through that process. So how do I exit my virtual environment? By typing exit. Okay. Now I'm back in my regular terminal file path location searcher. Right now I can ls again and see all the files. But unless I'm in that environment, I won't see my terminal look this way, which means I won't be able to start my server file. Okay, so the way we can go through terminal commands is by pressing the up and down arrows. So I'm just going to press a couple up arrows and go to my start environment command, pip env shell. That's going to start the environment. We've started. We can see that through this parentheses. And then we can stop our environment, right, by typing exit. Enter. Now I'm exited. All right. I want us to give me some feedback on how well we're understanding the difference between an environment that started and stopped. Okay, how do we know when our environment's on and off? How to enter and leave. Okay, again, we haven't used it yet, but we're creating a space now for a project in a space. Okay, we're creating a space within a space. Think of our folder space as a lot, like a giant lot of land. It's a place where we can go in and build a building that holds that restaurant, right? That holds that front end, back end area. So just because we're in the folder here doesn't mean we're able to get started. We need the building up and running before we put the tools in there. So that's what the virtual environment is about. Going into your folder space and creating an official space for your project. Okay, I'm going to share the poll results results so you guys can see how well you are understanding with each other. You can feel like you're not the only one falling behind, or you can see that, okay, I am getting it. I think everyone else, there's some people that are getting it too. Okay, so we have our virtual environment stopped and started. And so now what we're missing is a server file. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. All we need to do to create a server file is go here in our folder and type in server.py. Now we've created our server file. Simple as that. Now, in order to see what that server, in order to put some information there so that our app works, we're going to copy and paste from the platform, and we're going to explain what we're seeing here. All right, so we're not going to get overwhelmed. Here we are. Okay, let's look at this step by step. I'm going to indent a little bit. Oops. Okay. So let's look at this step by step, and then we'll get our server running. What this is a server file to help get our app and running in place. Okay, so the first line here is we import Flask to allow us to create our app. This is a necessary line. This is an import statement, and we know because it says import. So we're in our server file grabbing hold and taking advantage of that virtual environment that allows us to create our app. Okay. This, when we see this dunder underscore underscore and then the name underscore underscore, what do we remember this being? What does this look like in general? What does this look like? A function call, right? It looks like a, yeah, it looks like a class. Yeah, so it's a class Flask, and then the under name, it's an instance of Flask that we're calling app. So whenever we have a virtual environment, it's like we're creating instances of environments, right? They stand in place and time when we're using it, and when we're not using it, we turn it off and it's gone. That instance is gone. So think of it something like that. Okay. Now, what is this line? This line is very important. This one we may be, well, we would be using a lot, and we would be either changing what's in these quotations or adding to it. What this is saying whenever you go to this route, any route in your computer, let's go to this route here. Okay. It's as if it was just saying your baseline, let's say google.com/, okay. After google.com, there's nothing, right? So it's just a slash. So it's saying this is your starting point. When you're at just nothing, just a slash, what you're going to render, you're going to start this function that says def hello world. This is our first function now that we see in our app, and it's going to return hello world. This is a string, right? So what this string does is associated with this function. When we get to this route, should give us a hello world. And we're going to look for this hello world to make sure that we properly did this. Okay, so this is our server. And one last bit here at the end. If underscore underscore name equals underscore underscore main, this is a line that protects us from our file being run from a different module, from a different location. So this is a line just to check that it's run from the same place that it's being used at. And this helps us debug, but we haven't yet needed to debug anything yet. So no need to really worry about what this does yet, but just keep it in your file for now. So what we need to understand is basically everything here. This too, although we don't need to touch it or worry about this, but we need to know what these are, and especially this. This here tells us that it's at this route, at that location, run this function, which does this thing, returns hello world. Okay. So now that we have our server and it's in our folder where we have our virtual environment, we should now be able to start our server from our terminal. Let's look at where we are. We're on our folder. Here's our pip file, pip.log file, and our server.py file. So in order to run the server, I have to start my virtual environment. So I'll say pip env shell. Now my virtual environment is up and running. Okay, so in order to continue, I will say Python 3. That's gonna initiate this Python file, right? We want this to be read, so we say the name. I'm saying Python 3 because I'm in a Mac, but if you're a PC, just say Python, just like that. Python 3, then the name of the file, server.py. If everything had been built successfully up to this point, you should see this here. Should see this warning. This is a development server. Do not use in production deployment. And then you should see this here, Control C to quit. And this is what we want right here. http:// and then that number ending with 5,000. So what I'll do now is I'll paste it in my search bar and enter. And there we go. Do you see that little text there? Hello world. It's 500%, but we're going to get it looking better over time. Okay, so 3 steps so far. We've created a folder. We've gone in and created a virtual environment. We started the environment. And then 4 steps, ran our server. Okay. Step 4, we ran our server. And so now this is up and running. If we change this return, then let's look at how this reacts here. All right, this is up and running. If I make an edit to my server here, it restarts, it registers that edit. If you make too many edits at once, it'll crash the server, okay? But you can see here sort of how this machine now works. This thing is like the engine, it's running, and we're working on a running engine. So we're able to refresh now this link, and it says hello class. So this is our first running backend. After you've done this, you guys should feel like you hit a milestone, right? I've started my first now backend running through a virtual environment, able to see it on the browser. Hello class. I think it's pretty cool. Okay. So we've gone through what's in the server.py file. This is what we've called our place where our backend lives and is our kitchen. We've started our virtual environment. We ran Python 3 server.py. And here's something I want you guys to know. What happens if we don't do it while we've started our virtual environment? Well, first, in order to see that, I need to stop the server. And I'm going to do Control C to quit. So I need to quit this. I need to stop the engine, turn off the ignition. So I'm going to say Control C. And I'm still in my virtual environment, but it's not started. It's back. The server's off. Server's off. But I'm still in my virtual environment, and my virtual environment is on, as you can see, because I still have that parentheses hello Flask. So can someone in the chat tell me how to exit the virtual environment?
You just type exit.
Yes, sir. And there we are. Back to just our file location where our environment lives, and we can start and stop it. We know that because the pip files are there, and our server file is still there. So what happens? Here's what I wanted to ask you guys. What happens now if I try to start the server.py without first starting my environment? Let's try it. Server Python 3 server.py. It starts the environment anyway. Oops, hold on. Oops, I accidentally pressed Control C. So I'm in my folder without starting the virtual environment. Let's see what this does. Delete, restart. You just paste it in. Oh, it's the same one. What am I thinking? Well, it started it. I think because our project is so simple, it was able to run it. I think normally that wouldn't be the case, right? Instructor.
You probably just have Flask installed on your base environment. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And so
If
that's
you
what's
uninstall Flask, it won't run.
So having Flask like in a base environment, like a global environment, is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
And is that something that there's a pitfall for us to avoid having it in a global environment, Flask?
Yeah, you should probably avoid it. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. You just want your virtual environment is for any breaking changes, right? So if they come out with a new version of Flask, you don't want your app to break.
Right.
So yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I wanted to point out that it wouldn't work because I didn't have a virtual environment, but now I'm aware that my virtual environment has a global level, which is what I was trying to advise them not to do. But okay, we'll now we know, and we'll get it fixed. So if you have this able to do as well, now we know what's going on, right? So I must have installed Flask at a virtual environment level and was unaware of it, and this is why I'm able to start my server at this point, which is unusual. So I think I would like to delete that virtual environment at some point, figure out where it is. But it happens. And what we can expect sometimes is that if we have a virtual environment trying to start within another one, then we'll get a definitely something breaking here. But I don't think that's the case since I'm able to start my virtual environment here. Let's see.
Type pip list here, pip3 list.
Pip3 list.
Yeah, so you have Flask. You have everything installed here.
Yeah.
So do pip uninstall Flask.
Pip3 pip3, right?
Yeah.
Uninstall Flask.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yes. Okay, now try to run server.py.
Okay. There we go. Okay. And you know what? This is a great lesson for everyone else. If you were able to start your Flask server, start your server, and you didn't start your environment, you probably made the same error as I did. And the way to see what we just did is to type in pip list, right? Pip, in my case, pip3 list. Then it showed us everything available here. that we have. And so Flask was one of them, right? Because I said pip3 uninstall Flask. So that took away the virtual environment away from the global level. And now I can't start my project by typing python3 server.py, which is what I want, because I don't want environment at the global level. So if you accidentally made that mistake, please try to follow along and uninstall it from the global level. Now, here's where I'll show us what I originally wanted to show us. If we run python3 server.py, it will not work. But if I say pip env shell, it starts the virtual environment, as you can see there. It started. And now when I type here in my virtual environment, I can say python3 server.py. And now it will run. Okay, so this is properly going. Thank you again, Tyler. I appreciate that. So let's take a look here. Oh, and again, in order to stop and start your server, which is what we're calling your engine here, you have to do Control-C in order to stop. Okay, so we go into a folder, create a virtual environment, we start the environment, and then we start our server. All right, let's look at our checklist here. We've ran the server file, so now we've finished all that we need to do related to virtual environments. Okay. So we've done these steps as well. We've launched pip env, and at this point in our lesson, we need to do something a little bit more complex to our folders and file structure, right? Because it's really simple. We just have our virtual environment and then our server.py file here. So what I think I'll do is I think, cut the lesson off at this point because we've gone over enough information. And what I really wanted you guys to understand is the difference between a folder, an environment, how to stop and start the environment, and how to stop and start the server. What files that we have here in our virtual environment and our server file to start our server, okay? Not a lot of stuff to digest, but it is meticulous to get your server up and running. Okay, once we're here, I think we're at a good point to go ahead and say we've learned today's lesson. And then this afternoon, I'm going to pick up and start talking about the folder file structure. Let's see here. Where's my notes? We're going to talk about routing. So that means making different locations for, right now, the route goes to a simple slash, right? But what if we wanted to make it like what we saw in the assignment? We say 3 red, or, go to login or something. This will take us to the login page, or this would take us to the registration page. So we want this to work for us, to take us to different pages. Right now, it only takes us to one base page, which is that slash that says hello world. Right? That's what we see here. Hello class, actually. There we are. All right, so let's take one more poll, see how we're feeling about today's lesson. And ask any questions if we have any at this point. I'm seeing a couple low numbers, and that's all right, because I definitely had that same exact reaction.
Let's say I understand everything and I have everything done, but whenever I go to localhost 5000, it's just saying can't reach page, localhost refused to connect.
Okay, try changing it to 8,000. in your
Okay.
server. And what do you get from that, Johnny? Let us know.
It is still saying it's refusing to connect.
Okay. Um, let's go over that in office hours, and we'll get you
Okay.
up and running. If anyone else is running into snags here with just these steps, please stop by our office and get this resolved so that we can get you moving forward. Okay. At this point, if you are falling behind in assignments, what I want you to do is postpone those assignments. Just put them on hold for a second and focus on today's lesson and end of day material. Okay. Those assignments are critical and crucial for you to learn full stack. But if you just stop and continue from where we are today, you'll be able to go back and redo those assignments a little bit more ease. Okay. The stuff we're learning is going to still help you learn past assignments. But I want us to not be at so different places. You know, if you're just a little far behind, then yeah, catch up. But if you're like on Monday or Tuesday's work, let's work on getting this virtual environment set up, because if you start working on virtual environments on Monday, we're already doing databases by then, and you're going to be overwhelmed. Okay. So today, this afternoon, we're going to work on routing. We're going to work on a file structure so that we can make our routes nice and clean and efficient. And let's talk about something else here. What else are we going to do? We're going to talk about, sure, path variables and then static files as well. So that means setting up all the files for our front end, our HTML, CSS, and images file, and then setting up variables that can go to those paths that we need. Okay, so lots of information today. We're starting now to build full stack apps. So you guys should get excited if you haven't been at this point before. All right, we're starting full stack apps. We're starting our server. We're getting environments up and running. We're becoming more and more developers each day. Okay, any other further questions? Okay, now then let's go ahead and relook at our schedule here. We're gonna have some break time till lunch, and then again I'll switch this over to 2:30 as I usually do, and then you know, after that lesson, you guys can go back to working together on assignments. As for yesterday's open lab, I know some of you guys worked really hard on getting those projects up and running, but unfortunately today we have a lot of work to do and we don't have as much time to present as I would have hoped. So thank you guys for your hard effort, but we are going to really focus on getting everybody up and running with these virtual environments. Okay. So thank you again yesterday for all your participation. It was the last group project we'll be doing for this whole Python course. But today we have to switch onto Flask and routing, or else we're going to get far behind next week, which is another crucial week. So every day here is super important, and MLK gives us a nice rest day, but it also makes our lessons a lot more compact. We have one less day to review before the test, so everything has to be on point here. We have to understand what today's lesson is. Okay, we need to get our virtual environments running and our servers in our virtual environments running. Okay, so with that said, I think we're good to go. Let's have a great lunch. Let's have some time to study together, work together. I'll see you guys at 2:30 Mountain Time, and then we'll finish up today's lesson. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop the share, stop the recording. And I'll have yesterday's recordings up on the schedule in about 20 minutes. Okay, so give me some time to work on that.